Have you ever had a single moment, one split second, that shattered everything you thought you knew about yourself? Today, I'm going to share a story that might make you uncomfortable. It might make you angry. But it's a story that could save your family. What I'm about to tell you isn't just about infidelity. It's about watching your child's world crumble through their eyes, and knowing you're the one who broke it. But before I tell you how my 14-year-old daughter's trust in me died, let me ask you this. What would it take for your child to look at you and say, "I wish you would die," and mean it? Because that's exactly what happened to me. And if you're standing where I once stood, you need to hear what comes next. It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. The kind where nothing spectacular is supposed to happen. The kind where your biggest worry should be what to make for dinner. But for my daughter Sarah, it became the day that would define her teenage years. She wasn't supposed to be home for another hour. Tennis practice usually ran until 5. But that day, just that one day, practice ended early. And in that moment, as her hand turned our bedroom doorknob, neither of us knew our lives were about to change forever. You see, behind that door wasn't just her mother in the arms of another man. It was the death of everything she believed about love, trust, and family. It was the moment her childhood innocence shattered like a mirror hitting concrete. But let me take you back, because to understand how we got here, you need to know what led to this moment. And more importantly, you need to know what happened after, because what I'm about to share isn't just my story of shame. It's a warning, a lesson, and maybe, just maybe, a story of redemption. We were the family everyone envied. Mike, my husband, successful lawyer, coach of our daughter's soccer team. Sarah, straight-A student, daddy's little girl with a smile that could light up a room. And me. Well, I was the mom who had it all together. Or so everyone thought. But underneath that perfect facade, cracks were forming. Mike and I had grown distant. Not in any dramatic way. There were no screaming matches, no thrown plates. Just silence. The kind of silence that creeps in so slowly you don't notice until it's deafening. That's when I met James at a local coffee shop one rainy afternoon. It started innocently enough, small talk about the weather, a shared joke about the overpriced lattes. But there was something in the way he looked at me, as if I were someone worth noticing. One coffee turned into 2. Then into lunches. Then into hours-long conversations where, for the first time in years, I felt truly seen. He listened. He complimented me. He made me feel alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. But this isn't about James. This is about what happened when my daughter pushed open that door. The look in her eyes, God, I'll never forget it. It wasn't just shock or anger. It was like watching someone's entire world view crumble in real time. She didn't say a word. She just turned and ran. The next sound I heard was her calling her father. Daddy, I need you to come home right now. Her voice cracked in a way I'd never heard before. Mom. Mom's with someone else. What followed was chaos. I moved out that night, watching through tears as my daughter refused to even look at me. But that was just the beginning of our story. Because what happened over the next year would test every ounce of strength I had, and reveal just how deep a daughter's pain can go. For months, she wouldn't speak to me except to say things no mother ever expects to hear from their child. I hate you. You're dead to me. I wish you would just disappear. Each word was a knife, but I knew I deserved every cut. The hardest part wasn't the names she called me. It was watching her relationship with her father grow stronger while I became a stranger in my own family. Every time we were in the same room, she would physically place herself between us, guarding him from me like she was afraid I might hurt him again. I tried everything. Therapy sessions where she sat in stone-cold silence. Letters she wouldn't read. Birthday presents returned unopened. Each rejection was a reminder of what I'd done, of the trust I'd broken. But then came the breaking point. It happened last week, and it's what made me decide to share this story with you today. I broke down in front of her, completely shattered, begging for just a chance to make things right. Her response? I wish you would die. 4 words that made me question everything, including whether I deserved to be alive at all. But this isn't where our story ends. Because even in my darkest moment, I realized something crucial. This pain, this shame, this overwhelming guilt, it's not just my burden to bear. It's a lesson that might save another family from the same fate. That night, after my daughter told me she wished I would die, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at old family photos on my phone. Each swipe brought another memory: Sarah's 10th birthday, the family vacation in Hawaii, Christmas mornings where her eyes lit up with joy. I couldn't stop the tears as I realized how many future memories would now be forever tainted. Then something happened that changed everything. A notification popped up. Sarah had posted something on her private social media. Someone had shared it with me. My hands trembled as I read her words. Sometimes I wonder if any marriage is real. If love actually exists. Because if my mom could do this to my dad, to our family, then maybe everything is just fake. That post hit me harder than any insult she'd hurled at me. It wasn't just anger anymore. I was watching my choices reshape my daughter's entire worldview about love and relationships. My betrayal wasn't just destroying her present, it was poisoning her future. I spent that entire night writing in my journal, really examining what I'd done. Not just the affair, but every small decision that led to it. The moments I chose to confide in James instead of working on my marriage. The times I put my own desires above my family's stability. The countless little lies I told myself to justify it all. I went back to that coffee shop, the place where it all started. But this time, I saw it differently. Every table, every corner where James and I had sat, now looked like a crime scene. Because that's what they were, places where I had murdered my daughter's innocence, one secret meeting at a time. The next day, I did something I should have done months ago. I started individual therapy, not just family counseling. Because I realized that to heal my family, I needed to understand why I was capable of hurting them so deeply in the first place. I also changed how I approached Sarah. Instead of bombarding her with apologies and pleas for forgiveness, I started sending her one text every morning. Not asking for anything, just telling her something I was grateful for about being her mother. Most went unanswered, but I kept sending them. Then came a tiny breakthrough. After 3 weeks of daily messages, she responded. Just 2 words: stop trying. But I noticed something in those words. She hadn't called me names, hadn't wished me dead. It was pain, raw and real, but without the burning hatred of before. I remembered how she used to love baking with me on Sundays. So I started sending her pictures of my attempts to recreate our old recipes. They were usually disasters. I'd always relied on her to remember the exact measurements. But each failed cupcake and burned cookie was a reminder of what we'd lost, and what I was fighting to rebuild. One night, I wrote her a different kind of letter. Instead of apologizing, I told her about my own mother's infidelity, something I'd never shared with anyone. I told her how I'd sworn I'd never do the same thing, how I'd become exactly what I'd hated, and how understanding my own mother's actions now brought me no comfort, only deeper shame. 3 days later, she texted back, "I didn't know that about Grandma." 5 words. But they were the first words she'd said to me that weren't filled with hatred. It wasn't forgiveness, we're nowhere near that yet. But it was acknowledgement. Recognition that maybe, just maybe, I was more than my worst mistake. That's when I truly understood something. Recovery from betrayal isn't linear. It's not about grand gestures or dramatic moments of forgiveness. It's about tiny steps, microscopic shifts, moments so small you might miss them if you're not paying attention. So here's what I want you to know. That moment of weakness, that temporary escape you're considering? It's not worth it. The price is too high. The damage too severe. The consequences too far-reaching. Because infidelity isn't just about betraying your partner. It's about demolishing your child's foundation. It's about teaching them that love isn't reliable, that trust is foolish, that family means nothing. I'm sharing this because somewhere out there, someone is standing where I stood a year ago, contemplating a choice that could destroy everything they hold dear. And maybe, just maybe, my story can be the wake-up call they need. Today, my daughter still barely speaks to me. My husband and I are trying to rebuild, but trust is like a precious vase. Once shattered, you can glue it back together, but the cracks will always show. So before you make that choice, before you convince yourself it's harmless or that no one will know, remember this story. Remember the look in my daughter's eyes. Remember that some wounds don't heal, some trust can't be rebuilt, and some moments can't be undone. Because the hardest lesson I've learned isn't about love or marriage or fidelity. It's about watching your child's heart break and knowing you're the one who broke it. If this story touched you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below with your thoughts or experiences. And don't forget to subscribe for more raw and real-life cheating stories that might just change someone's life. Remember, sometimes the most important lessons come from our darkest moments. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video.